Fourth edict already burns for you. Your affliction upon her will soon be erased. Remember this
Alright. Before we get into the build guide, I just wanted to showcase it running a tier 15 modded map with a juiced up breach and rituals. And I wanted to say that yes, this is a slower looking build. I still think it is very strong and quite fun to play regardless. I love the playstyle of Volatile Dead, and it feels like a stronger version of old PoE 1's Volatile Dead builds with a lot more going on. As you can see, you could totally run it without the ice wall interaction and overkill stuff, and it would probably be just as strong with just Volatile Dead. However, you're probably not going to be one-shotting pinnacle bosses or one cast killing them or anything like that. It would be quite a fight, especially without any corpses to sacrifice or whatever. So your Volatile Deads aren't going to help you in those fights. And they do the most damage in the build. So you saw the ritual there. It looked pretty good. We're just making our way through. You really don't want to get hit by much. You can take a few hits obviously, but you just definitely don't want to be getting hit rapidly. You will lose a lot of life quickly. So always be casting. You'll always want those orbs out. They'll home in on nearby targets. So you don't even need to worry about anything. You just cast and go. If you don't have corpses, you pop a Firestorm, and that does all the work for you to get you started. And now you'll be able to see why I want to get rid of the damage as extra cold, which I talk about later in the build guide. It's simply because of the shattering of corpses ruining my Volatile Dead clear speed. So here's a breach. I just wanted to showcase that this can handle breaches really well, and it's quite fun. I wish I'd stopped looting and just killed, so you can really see. I think I hit this ritual at the same time, just to do both and show you guys what this build's capable of. It's got decent clear, and as long as you're killing stuff, you've got sustain. So, as you can see, it's pretty simple. The one thing it struggles with the most, in my opinion, is Delirium. Not so much because it's hard, it's just they don't leave corpses. So simulacrums are going to be nearly impossible with this character in its current design with Volatile Dead and all that. And that was the breach. This was after the +4 Zesht fight, so here's another ritual. You really just cast Firestorm and then your Volatile Deads until the Firestorm runs out, and then you recast Firestorm if needed. And make sure you walk through the corpses to gather your blood globes and your energy shield spirits. So the rest of this is just me looking for the rares, so I'm going to get into the build guide here. Hello everybody, before we begin, please like the video if you enjoyed the clips, and yeah, thank you for watching. Alright, this is my Bloodmage that I've been working on. I wanted to min-max this one as far as I could, or as far as I think I could. I have finally hit the ceiling, I believe, and wanted to share what I've come up with and what I'm doing with it, how you can start it and all that. Where to begin? I guess I'll start here and just show my defenses real quick so you can get an idea of what's going on there. I know being undercapped looks really bad, but as you saw in the clips, we're fine. It's not that big a deal when you kill everything right away. That won't be the case for many builds, but this one in particular is interesting and unique. So let's start, I suppose, with the items here. For your weapon, you're gonna need a wand like this. I prefer the Volatile Dead one, so you probably won't find one like this. I bought the only one on the market currently. This was 5 divines at the time I bought it. The main things to look for though is Volatile Dead wand. Gain damage as extra for cold and lightning. However, I'm planning to switch out the cold damage to fire because I don't like freezing and shattering enemies with this build. We want more corpses for the Volatile Deads. You saw how the gameplay looked, it's really crazy. You're going to want spell damage. In my opinion, that was better, but maybe some elemental damage like fire or lightning damage would be better. Plus level to fire skills because they are our main damage source. We use Volatile Dead and Firestorm for our damage. Well, we use it for the initial damage that then procs overkill, and I'm scaling the overkill damage to its max as best as I can. That's the whole point of this character. And then the last node you're gonna want is increased critical chance for spells. That's huge. For the offhand, you're going to need Sacred Flame with as high of damage as extra fire damage as you can get. And then a high quality is good for the Spirit. The other main reason we're using this is that enemies in my presence resist elemental damage based on their lowest resistance. And because we're doing so much of multiple damage types, I figured that combined with Choir of the Storm here, where critical hits ignore enemy monster lightning resistance, I will then ignore all resistances on those critical hits because of Sacred Flame. So that's true damage, and we'll get into why that's really crazy here in a minute. But you're going to want Greater Lightning Bolt to be level 19, and you really want to allocate Heart Stopping for that increased crit chance. Without that, we don't have enough with our current setup. You could probably get more and switch that out for crit damage of some kind, but I needed the int and crit chance, and I ended up getting a Dex Corrupt, which was nice. You also want to quality it with lightning modifiers, just to get that lightning resist up as much as you can. We are helping cap our crit chance with dual Seed of Cataclysms, and I went with quality to caster modifiers because that improves the crit chance and a critical hit damage bonus, and that's really crazy damage improvements having those. If you could get max rolls, do it. That's another min-max I have yet to try to go for, but it's something you can. So our main damage here comes from Trampletoe, and an interaction it has with killing ice walls that have a low health pool with a lot of damage, and that's why we do all this damage as extra, and it has a 100% crit chance on all my skills, so that way it just does the most absurd damage possible to enemies around those ice walls. And I personally like to use Killjoy gloves with it to get double the explosions. I don't know how necessary it really is, but I'm just, like I said, going all out. And we mitigate the life flasks do not recover life issue by grabbing Eternal Youth. So our life recharges instead of our energy shield, and then we just use our flask to recover energy shield, and it works just fine for me. And that also gives us crit damage bonus, and we added some resist to help boost those as high as possible. Our last unique we're going to be using is its Series Disdain. You're going to want a corruption for spirit to be able to use Grim Feast, and that'll let you overcap your energy shield, doubling it, whatever your total might be. In this build I went for pure damage, just pure damage. I took out all the defenses in my build, so this is a lot of energy shield that I'm getting. Without it we only have 307, so that's quite a bit there. Whoops, I did not mean to press that. But we'll get into that too. So the rares. This chest is godlike. I don't know if you're going to find anything like this. You can try, but the implicit spirit plus 50 spirit is absolutely necessary. You could lose 8 spirit and be fine. But yeah, this is very strong. You need all that spirit to be able to get double cast on crit, as well as Archmage and Grim Feast. You want over 100 life because life is energy shield, and then you also need triple resistances as high as you can get. This was very expensive for me to get, so I just got the best I could, and then my runes are just for as much extra resist as possible. You could probably sacrifice all resistances and go even more damages, as like with uniques or whatever, or get item rarity and just go crazy with all that if you want. You will get one shot sometimes if you're not careful. I like to have a little bit of tankiness. I do get one shot here and there with this build, but it's a lot less often than some of my other characters, just because of how often we just one shot everything. The belt, again, we want armor base, so that was what I went for with the plate belt. Over 100 life, again, life is energy shield as well because of the helmet, and then triple resistances and whatever other mods you could find other than that. And last but not least, we use this for Sigil of Power, and the only main stats you want on it are cast speed, intelligence, and max mana. I think are decent with it. Mainly just cast speed is the only important factor. Plus level of spells could be good too, because then you'll level up the Sigil of Power, which gives you spell damage. Each stage grants more spell damage, and you reach max stages when you proc cast on crits while within it. So the final hits of everything are doing an absurd amount of damage with that. For flasks and charms, I'm using Stone Charm, and you're going to want gains charges per second on all of them. I don't quite have that here. Increased duration's good on your charm, more recovery while on low mana for your mana flask, and then for your life flask, I'm thinking just increased recovery speed to get your energy shield up faster. Another cool thing to note is I believe you can just press your health flask at any point, even if you haven't lost the energy shield, and it will continue to overheal the energy shield. So you can take hits and it'll just regenerate with the flask effect. Very strange, not sure if that's a bug or intended, but it does work, so. Alright, on to our skills here. I'm just going to quickly go over some things. We get 100% crit chance through all the things that we're doing here. What I go for is trying to get more Volatile Dead orbs. I want less movement speed penalties, so I can just start popping them and run while I'm popping them. I don't care about the ailments so much on this skill, so I just went with a more damage multiplier, and I went with damage as extra chaos. because I believe the sacrifice 10% on life on use is okay with this skill, because we don't have a life cost already like our other skill Firestorm has. And that life cost comes from being a Bloodmage, as some of you may know, Sanguimancy. So because this doesn't have a base mana cost, there's no mana cost up there, we can take that, and that's only 10% life. We get that back on kill. We have a bunch of life on kill from Purity of Fire here. You can throw these supports in your Purity of Fire, and it doesn't cost you any extra spirit, because Purity of Fire doesn't cost spirit. And it does affect you. I've checked. I forget where I can see that. Right here, down here. So if I take one out, see how it disappears? So it is affecting me. Increased mana regen granted to you, even though it might not be able to in the future. That's just what we're doing now. It bypasses that spirit cost. Very strong. Our Greater Lightning Bolt has plus level of lightning skills for that extra base damage. I went with Spell Echo. I didn't like Spell Cascade on it. We use that elsewhere. Echo gives it more area of effect. Less cast speed doesn't matter because it's an automatic trigger. I went with supported skill does more damage for each skill used recently of elemental damage type, because we're using fire, cold, and lightning spells constantly. It just felt like the best damage boost for it, as well as biting frost so that it can't cause freeze buildup, but it consumes freeze zone enemies, and that just makes it do way more damage. The reason I picked that is because it usually breaks the ice walls underneath enemies as they spawn, and because, you know, I figured that would just help boost damage. It might not even be all that much. You don't really need it though. Sigil of Power, I just threw in more cast speed and area of effect. Life Remnants we leave alone. No need to put anything in it. Grim Feast is basically Life Remnants but for energy shields, so we always have double our total, which puts us around 8,000 total, which is really crazy. Then we use Firestorm. I really like this. It's basically our boss or rare killer, or it starts our pack killing. But I just toss one down and it has a high enough duration where it just starts everything, all the chain reactions. Has a good enough AoE. So we use plus level fire skills. We used concentrated effect for that extra damage, and it reduces the spread of the fire bolts that come down. It does reduce their AoE as well, but we would just want the spread to come down, especially with all the AoE we have in our tree. It's just making that a little much. So that tones it down a bit, and all the damage we could get on it is good, because it procs the ice wall explosions and the overkill damage and all that. We went with Execute just to get a little extra damage out of it. I don't think this matters all that much though. Considered casting kind of hurts, as you see in some of the clips. When I try to cast it, I slow down quite a bit, but the more damage is very good. And I went with less cost because otherwise it has an absurd mana and life cost, and I just don't like dealing with that. So that kind of tones it down quite a bit. It too has 100% crit chance. Every skill I use has 100% crit chance. You probably won't see it there, but there you go. Even Ice Wall. So for cast on crit Ice Wall, I went with Spell Cascade Fortress to make big circles of ice walls, and just a bunch of them. Icicle gives us less life on them so that we overkill them more. And then I went with Ingenuity for increased cooldown recovery rate. That just lets me spawn them more. Our second cast on crit, I wanted to use Spark I just felt like the duration skill worked well with my other duration skill, and I liked the idea of using Fire Cold Lightning. It was the best spell because it could go across the map and hit other enemies. You can do whatever you like, really. That's just what I liked. And I went with Pierce, Acceleration, Persistence, and Impetus, so that I cast them more, and that they pierce enemies and keep going through them repeatedly, critting them. It too has 100% crit chance. Like I said, everything we do has 100%. And that's due to Sunder the Flesh and the passive tree, which we'll get into. And then we just went with Archmage because it's a bunch of extra damage as extra lightning. And that's insane. When you have 1,000 mana, that's 80%, I believe, just out of 0. So, yeah, pretty good, I think. It does improve, or like give you more mana cost, and it does add a mana cost to your Volatile Dead, but that does not in turn also add a life cost, so it's negligible. You can just spam cast it as you see. We have enough mana on kill here, and we're gonna get into all that stuff here in a second. So for the Ascendancy, I went with pure damage. I like the crit damage bonus per life, even though we don't get a lot of life. It just helps round it out more. You get extra crit chance. Then base crit is huge. That's what lets you use the fire skills to begin with. Otherwise you're stuck using ice skills until you get this. And I was toying with Grasping Wounds, but I ended up just scrapping all tankiness in the build and going pure damage, and that's why you see Blood Barbs. I also toyed around with the Leech idea, but again, just didn't really care for it, didn't notice it. So, more damage. I gained damage as extra, which I believe all the other damages are just, it's all adding on top of each other in a crazy way. We can now also bleed enemies because of this with all of our damage types, which is pretty crazy. I don't notice it too much, but it does pop up every now and then. Probably contributes to the damage a bit. I'm not going to go over the passives of why I picked certain passives. You can just see what I'm doing here. It's a lot of crit, it's a lot of energy gain. Trigger skills refunding half their energy spent. You really want Deadly Force because that is just damage increases if you've dealt a crit recently, and then damage on critical is huge for our build. The reason I chose that is because that directly improves the overkill damage explosions. I am heading down towards this jewel socket and then this jewel socket for my up to level 100. I believe that'll cap me. And what I'm trying to get on jewels is critical hit chance for spells. We have 7 there, 11 there, 6, 14, I already checked that. Yep. And then we do get a little bit here from notable passive skills. So 5, 10, and then we get a little bit over here. This is a really crazy jewel. You can try to get anything like these, but that gives us extra crit chance on both of these nodes as well. And you're gonna want all that. That is what I needed to cap it. I'm sorry, I'm too tired to do the math like right now. Another thing you're gonna need, elemental damage increases are good. Magnitude of damaging ailments isn't too important. Meta skills gained increased energy, huge. You need that. And chance to inflict ailments I really like. However, I'm dropping cold damage as extra to avoid freezing and shattering corpses, so I can continue to use corpses as bombs. Mana on kill and area of effect are other passives you're really gonna want. I would say around 10% mana on kill, because that makes it 20 with the gloves. And the area of effect, just get as much as you can, really. Same with the crit chance. You just get as much as you need to cap it. Like, when I go into here and I look at this, I take one out. So I could remove 6% crit chance, it looks like. That wouldn't do anything to my overcap. But I don't have another jewel to fit that right now. Anyways, maybe I can min-max some more. You can definitely do better than I. I really suggest getting time lost sapphires for these slots right here and here, because I kind of thought to get desensitization as well. So you'd get a lot of passives out of that and that. You're right around a bunch of defenses as well if you need or prefer. You can get calibration. You can grab mental perseverance, adverse growth with the mana before life. You can also get this mana before, or damage taken from mana before life as well. So there's options. This energy shield, this one up here. I just chose pure damage. And I think that's everything. Just to show you guys my atlas tree real quick. I'm not quite done. I stopped doing maps after getting my stuff here and here to go farm ultimatums. So that's why I don't have these last two passives, but I'm probably gonna pick Brutal Essence. Maybe Beyond Reality, but probably Brutal Essence. We'll see. And I didn't really care for Expeditions yet. Delirium I haven't tried yet. And Rituals I just haven't really gotten any keys yet. I don't plan on buying them. That's too expensive and crazy. Don't care. This build will probably one-shot all the bosses. Simulacrum, I did try one. It ran into some troubles with my current setup because they don't leave corpses. So you're probably better off as a Spark version of this in that regard. I don't think I have anything else to say here. I believe that's everything. So if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments below if you need any more answers. Just remembered one last thing. For Act 3, you're going to want to get the mana regen rate and it doesn't show it, but the chaos resistance is what I went with. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe again if you like this. I'm not going to do more crazy overpowered builds like this too much. Most of them I'm trying to find strong builds but that aren't crazy like this. I just felt like trying this because it looked fun to me, and I know it's gonna get nerfed eventually. Wanted to try it before that because I never got to in PoE 1 with some of the crazy meta builds that were around back then. Vol Molten Shell, some of you may remember, that was really crazy back in the day. This feels something like that. The Herald Stackers, Aura bots, those are crazy. Yeah, just stuff like that. It feels like a Joseph build. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Catch you guys later in another video. New build coming soon. I have some ideas cooking, so we'll see. It's not gonna be what you think. I'll tell you that. Not a meta stat stacker or staff build like you think. Might do some stat stuff, but not pure. Stay tuned if you like this. See ya.